The 2026 Open Championship at Royal Birkdale turned into one of the most talked about weeks in recent professional golf, not because of who won, but because of a two-stroke penalty, a locker room divide, and a response from the world number one that took nearly 2 full days to arrive. The story begins in round 2 of the tournament. Bryson DeChambeau found his ball buried in deep fescue rough on the 5th hole. Before playing his shot, DeChambeau stepped near the ball, an action that a slow-motion replay later showed improved the area of his intended swing. The R&A ruled it a violation and issued a 2-stroke penalty. In its official statement, the R&A confirmed the penalty applies, even when accidental, meaning intent was not a factor in the ruling. The penalty dropped DeChambeau from 7 under par to 5 under par, pushing him out of the final group for the remainder of the tournament. DeChambeau did not accept the ruling quietly. He contested the call and remained on the practice range into the night rather than leaving the course. As a direct consequence, third-round tee times were pushed back the following day. Reaction among players and media was swift, with some in the golf press describing the delay and the dispute as a joke. Marco Penge was among the voices who spoke publicly about the situation, adding a second-player perspective to the growing controversy. The next major development came 2 days later, during the Saturday press conference ahead of the third round. Rory McIlroy, who had watched the incident unfold live from the players' lounge, was asked directly about DeChambeau and the penalty. His response went well beyond a simple ruling opinion. McIlroy said, "I'm not particularly fond of him," adding that, "a lot of it's performative," and accusing DeChambeau of trying to hold the tournament hostage. This was not McIlroy commenting on a rules technicality. It was a direct character assessment of a fellow competitor, delivered on the record, during major championship week. McIlroy did not stop at criticizing DeChambeau's conduct during the delay. He also addressed the penalty itself, calling the violation pretty obvious once he had seen the replay. In doing so, McIlroy separated 2 distinct issues: whether the ruling was correct, which he affirmed, and whether DeChambeau's behavior afterward was appropriate, which he strongly criticized. That distinction is important, because it shaped how the rest of the field responded over the following days. McIlroy's comments did not emerge from nowhere. The 2 players have a documented history of tension. During the final round of the 2025 Masters, McIlroy and DeChambeau were paired together and were notably not speaking to each other on the course, a detail that was widely reported at the time. That prior context gave McIlroy's Birkdale comments additional weight in the eyes of many observers, since this was not the first sign of friction between the 2 men. Once McIlroy's remarks became public, the response from the rest of the field was not uniform. Several players pushed back, at least partially, on McIlroy's characterization of DeChambeau. Xander Schauffele offered a contrasting view, describing the rules violation itself as unintentional and expressing sympathy for the difficulty of DeChambeau's position in the deep rough on the 5th hole. Schauffele's comments framed the incident as an unfortunate accident rather than a deliberate attempt to gain an advantage. Max Homa also spoke in DeChambeau's defense, describing him as a player who has a track record of calling penalties on himself when he believes he has committed a violation, even without being caught by officials or television replay. Homa's comment was notable because it addressed DeChambeau's broader reputation for self-policing, directly countering the performative characterization McIlroy had used a day earlier. A pattern emerged across these player reactions. Several golfers who spoke publicly about the incident agreed that the 2-stroke penalty itself was the correct ruling under the rules of golf. Where they diverged from McIlroy was on the question of DeChambeau's character and intent. Multiple players extended the benefit of the doubt to DeChambeau regarding his conduct, even while accepting that the penalty stood. This divide, between agreeing on the ruling but disagreeing on the character judgment, became the defining storyline of the tournament's back half. Notably absent from the public commentary in the immediate aftermath was Scottie Scheffler, the world number 1 golfer. Reporters asked Scheffler for his reaction right after he finished his own round that week, but he declined to comment in detail at that time. He told reporters he had a lot to say on the matter, but chose not to elaborate immediately. That restraint stood out, given how quickly other players had weighed in. Scheffler's silence did not last through the tournament. He addressed the controversy on Sunday night, after his own chance at the title had ended. At that point, he delivered the comments that would become the most quoted response to the entire controversy. Scheffler said, "I've known him for a long time," referring to DeChambeau, before adding, "He's definitely not a cheater." He went further, stating, "I've never seen him cheat once." These were direct, unambiguous statements defending DeChambeau's integrity, coming from the highest-ranked player in the sport. Scheffler's comments carried particular weight for several reasons. As the world number one, his public statements draw more attention than those of most other players on tour. He is also generally known for rarely commenting on off-course drama or controversies involving other competitors, which made his decision to speak out on this specific issue stand apart from his usual public conduct. The timing, waiting until his own tournament chances were fully finished before commenting, indicated a deliberate choice rather than a reactive one. Scheffler's remarks were not limited to a defense of DeChambeau's character. He added a second, separate point to his comments, that golf's rules need to be enforced more consistently and, in his view, more strictly across the board. This addition meant Scheffler's position could not be reduced to simply taking DeChambeau's side against McIlroy. Instead, he combined a personal defense of a fellow player with a broader critique of how the rules are applied throughout professional golf. That nuance separated his comments from a simple takedown of McIlroy's position. This distinction opened up the larger question sitting underneath the entire controversy: is rules enforcement in professional golf actually consistent from player to player and moment to moment? Scheffler's own argument touched directly on this issue. He raised the point that star players face a different level of scrutiny than lesser-known competitors, because every shot hit by a top-ranked golfer during a major championship is captured on camera and available for slow-motion review. Lower-profile players competing in the same events do not receive the same level of video coverage, meaning similar actions by less prominent competitors are far less likely to be caught, reviewed, or penalized in the same way. This television coverage argument reframes the entire incident. Rather than treating it purely as a dispute between two individual players, Scheffler's comments position the DeChambeau penalty within a larger structural issue: whether the intensity of media coverage given to top-ranked golfers effectively creates uneven enforcement of the same rules across the field. A violation by a heavily filmed contender in the final rounds of a major championship is far more likely to be caught on replay than the same action committed by a player further down the leaderboard, whose shots receive minimal broadcast attention. By the close of the 2026 Open Championship, 3 distinct positions had been staked out publicly by 3 of the sport's most prominent figures. McIlroy's position held that the penalty was correctly applied, while also raising direct concerns about DeChambeau's character and conduct during the delay that followed. DeChambeau's position, communicated through his decision to contest the call and remain on the range into the night, was that the penalty was harsh given the accidental nature of his action in the rough. Scheffler's position combined a defense of DeChambeau's personal integrity with a call for more consistent enforcement of the rules across all players, not just those under heavy television scrutiny. The controversy did not resolve cleanly by the end of the tournament. McIlroy's comments about DeChambeau's conduct remained a point of tension between the two players heading into their next shared events on tour. Golf reporters covering the story noted that this incident added another chapter to an already documented history of friction between McIlroy and DeChambeau, one that stretches back at least to their pairing during the final round of the 2025 Masters. What makes this incident significant beyond the immediate drama is what it reveals about how professional golf handles rules enforcement and player conduct in the modern broadcast era. The R&A's ruling was procedurally clear: a 2-stroke penalty for improving the area of an intended swing, applied regardless of intent. That part of the story was never in dispute among the players who commented publicly. What remained contested, and what Scheffler's Sunday night comments pushed into the open, was whether that same rule would have been enforced the same way against a player receiving less camera attention, and whether DeChambeau's character deserved the scrutiny McIlroy applied to it in his Saturday press conference. The sequence of events across that week at Royal Birkdale ran on a clear timeline. Round 2 produced the penalty. The delay into round 3 produced criticism from media and at least one player, Marco Penge. Saturday's press conference produced McIlroy's character comments. The following days produced a split field, with Schauffele and Homa offering more sympathetic reads on DeChambeau's conduct. Scheffler's initial silence, followed by his Sunday night comments after his own tournament ended, produced the final and most quoted response of the week. Each stage added a new layer to a story that started as a straightforward rules violation and ended as a broader conversation about consistency, character, and scrutiny at the highest level of professional golf.